Hey guys, I hope you are all having a great day so far. I was recently realizing that it had been about a month since I swapped out my everyday makeup drawer. So I am ready to pick out some new products. If you're new to this series, this is where I shop my stash for older products that maybe I haven't used in a while and just kind of create almost like a capsule makeup drawer of the products that I want to make sure that I focus on using throughout the next couple of weeks. Usually I keep my everyday makeup drawer for 2 to 4 weeks and then I just swap it out whenever I feel like I've gotten adequate use out of those products. So I really like to focus on seasonal items, things that I'm really feeling inspired to reach for during whatever season we're in. So obviously right now, with it being fall, I am just so excited to create all the fall makeup looks. So I'm going to give you a recap on the products that were in my last everyday makeup drawer. We'll swap those back into my collection and pick out some new things to put in, and then at the end of the video we will do a get ready with me using those products. That is the look that I have on my face right now. I am so in love with how this look turned out, especially the eye look, so definitely stay tuned to see how it all came together in the end. But let's go ahead and take a look at the products that have been in my everyday makeup drawer for the last month. Alright, so here's a look at what has been in my everyday makeup drawer for the past few weeks. Some of these things live in here permanently, like my Project Pan items and my mascaras and brow products. And here we have the products that I had in my Shop My Stash rotation for the past few weeks. First up, the Urban Decay Stone Vibes palette. It was so nice to reconnect with this palette over the past few weeks. I absolutely love this palette. Unfortunately, it's no longer sold, but this is one of the best palettes Urban Decay has ever created, in my opinion. The shimmers in here are stunning. Let me just show you some swatcheroos here. I don't know if that's doing these shades any justice, but the shimmers in here, they're translucent, glimmery, duochrome, sparkly. They're everything. I love them so much. I think this palette was meant to be kind of like their 2020 holiday palette, but to me, not only does this make a great holiday palette because it's so sparkly, but it also just has a ton of great fall tones in it. I actually mainly reached into this half of the palette this quarter. I actually don't think I reached into these shades at all, even though I do really like those greens and this reddish brown. Those also would make great fall shades, but this is definitely my most used side of the palette. As you can see, I have 2 pans here in Tiger's Eye and Vibes. I also use the shade Meditate. Third Eye is a great kind of plummy eggplant color. I used that as a liner a couple times. And I did also pair this palette with my Pan That palette, which is ABH Norvina. I am trying to hit pan on as many shades of Norvina as I can this year, and these two palettes work so well together. A lot of times this month I would do just kind of most of my look with Norvina, and then I would top it with either Tiger's Eye or Vibes. Those are my 2 favorite shades in this palette, but I'm gonna definitely have to reach into this palette at least a few more times this fall to use the greens. But I was just really in a rose gold burgundy plummy sort of mood over the past couple weeks, so I think that's why I didn't really get into those olives a whole lot. Definitely recommend pulling out this palette and using it this fall if you haven't already, if you do have this palette. I also had these 2 blushes in here, my Tower 28 cream blush in Magic Hour and my Essence the blush in Befitting. These both are great, just kind of neutral nude blushes. The Tower 28 one is a bit warmer, and the Essence one is just a bit more of a neutral dusty rose. Wasn't as into the Tower 28 one as I had been. I feel like this blush is a little bit more of a summer shade for me. It is quite warm, and I felt like it was just a little bit warmer than I was really in the mood for. So I'll try to keep that in mind as I pick some new blushes to put in my drawer this time. The BH Belgian Waffle palette I also got a ton of use out of. Pretty much any time I was reaching for a highlighter, I was using either of these or mixing the 2 together, powdered sugar and syrup. Actually, these 2 shades are pretty similar to each other, but I love the formula of these. They are so smooth. They remind me of the Becca highlighters, just a definitely very blingy formula, but I still like an intense highlighter. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I will ever stop loving a super shiny highlighter. So those are my 2 go-to highlighters over the past couple of weeks. I also use the bronzers quite a bit. I think I had mentioned also trying to use Maple, this highlighter that is definitely too dark for me to use as a highlighter. I had mentioned I wanted to try to use that as an eyeshadow, and I just didn't get around to that this rotation. Maybe another time. But I definitely did reach into this palette quite a bit for the bronzers and for those 2 highlighters, which is nice because I do feel like this palette, even though I love the formula, I can kind of tend to overlook it just because most of my cheek product collection is in single form rather than palette form, so I often just overlook this one in my collection. And then these were the lip products I had selected. I used these so much. So I had these two warm, I like to call these like pumpkin spice nude lipsticks. That top one there is the Urban Decay Vice lipstick in Liar. I love that color so much. And then the one below that that's a little bit more matte, that's the e.l.f. Seriously Satin lipstick in Nectar. I love both of those in the fall. Those are kind of like my two favorite fall nude lip colors. And then these bottom two colors are both kind of like plummy shades. So the lipstick I had, this is the Essence Lip Thirst in the shade Pina. I got so much use out of this rotation, even though it's such a bold color. I found myself using this a ton. I think it paired really nicely with the Stoned Vibes palette. So I loved that, and the lip liner that I chose to go with that, because it matches almost perfectly, is the Kokie lip liner in the shade Plum Purple. Now, unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to get rid of this because this smells. Like, the smell of this has gone off. I actually noticed a couple of my Kokie lip liners, I think they must have gone bad in the move or something, because it doesn't smell like rotten or anything. It just smells very kind of plasticky, and I know it didn't used to smell like that, and I also have quite a few other Kokie lip liners that don't smell weird. So I just went through all of my Kokie lip liners. All of these I received in PR at the same time. These four smell totally fine. My red one and my three nudes, they all smell normal. But these two, my hot pink, that's the shade Bright Fuchsia, and Plum Purple, these smell weird, like they've just gone off. So I'm gonna have to, unfortunately, pass these on. Luckily, my three favorites, my three most worn are these nude ones, and luckily those are all fine. But yeah, they must have just not held up well with like all the pressure changes when we, all my makeup was in the car with us when we drove cross country. And, you know, I think it's normal to have a few casualties, but I'm kind of bummed that these didn't last. But I really loved that plum color this month. I kind of been thinking about just leaving this Estate lipstick in my makeup drawer. Kind of feeling that way about all three of these, to be honest. I don't know, I might swap at least a couple of these out. Nectar has been in my everyday makeup drawer for the past 2 rotations from e.l.f. So I probably should spread the love and put some new products in. Finally, I had chosen my Urban Decay 24/7 eyeliner in Roxy to go in my everyday makeup drawer. This is a really pretty kind of metallic royal blue shade, and I actually only wore this one time. The one time I wore it was in, actually, if you saw my video where I created my custom Lethal Cosmetics palette, I used this in the look number 2 that I created in that video. I was definitely in more of like a plummy and neutral kind of fall mood this month, so I didn't really have a need for a blue eyeliner a whole lot, but I am really glad that I at least got to use it one more time. So that is everything that was in my everyday makeup drawer for the past, pretty much, I think it's been a month since I swapped it out, so I am ready to put some new products in. I'm gonna go ahead and put these back in my collection, and we'll pick out some new stuff now. Alright, so starting with palettes, I am working on a better storage solution for my palettes. I used to have them in the bottom drawer of my Alex drawers, but now that drawer is devoted to skincare stuff, so I kind of have them on the bottom shelf of my decorative shelf here that I have in the background of my videos. So this is where they're living right now, but I always like to pick out a palette first, and then I can kind of base the other products around that choice. And there's one palette in particular that I'm just feeling so drawn to right now. I need to put this in my everyday makeup drawer, and it is this one. This is the Estate Mystic Forest palette. You might have seen I talked about this in my like 10 throwback fall palettes video a couple weeks ago. This is just such a beautiful grungy fall color story to me, and I'm just dying to create some looks with this. I can't wait any longer. So this is going to be the palette that I pull in, and because I also already have my ABH Norvina in my everyday makeup drawer, this is going to be the only other palette that I roll in. Also, if you're wondering, I have 3 ABH palettes back here that I'm using to prop up this little pot here, so those are there as well. Eventually, I would like to put these in my everyday makeup drawer too, but I have just so many fall palettes and so little time. So maybe I'll try to do more frequent everyday makeup drawer updates so that I can get around to all of these palettes. So next up we have my face products. This drawer pretty much has all of my face products in it. And I am going to keep this palette out here just so I can keep this color story in mind as I pick out other products. But I think for my base category, I pretty much have everything I need within my project pan. So I'm not going to pick out any other base products. I'm going to go straight into cheek products here. Let's grab, this is like such an oldie but a goodie. This is the Becca highlighter in Champagne Pop. This will just never get old. This is such a beautiful champagne colored highlighter. Definitely will go nicely with the Estate palette there. And let's see about a blush. This one I recently rolled out of my new makeup drawer because I have had it for a few months now, but this is the Minori Cream Blush in Scarlet. I've been on such a red blush kick this year, really since the summers when I first started getting into red blushes, and I think red is such a flattering and such an underrated color for blush. And I think this shade is going to be perfect for some fall looks. Yeah, I really like how that coordinates with the Estate palette too. So I'm gonna roll that into my everyday makeup drawer. I'm also tempted to pull my Koki. I already had this in my everyday makeup drawer pretty recently, but I kind of want to put it back in. This is just so perfect for fall, and I really do think this goes beautifully with the Estate palette. This is the Koki Soft Gradient Blush in the shade Bellissima. It's kind of more burnt red sort of color. I was loving this in the summer, but I think this is also a beautiful fall shade. I just think those two colors go so well with this palette. So those are going to be my cheek products. So for bronzer, I do of course have my Charlotte Tilbury bronzer in my project pan, and I'm thinking that should be good. I think that should be enough in the cheek product department. I think any more than that I might get a little overwhelmed, so let's just leave it at that. Next, for lip products, I want to pick like one bold and one nude. I think that should be sufficient. Once again, keeping this palette in mind. You know what I definitely should roll in is this product from Urban Decay. This is one of the Urban Decay Vice lip bonds in the shade Once Strangers. So there's that color. You can see very brown. Definitely, this is like the only brown I have in my collection. But I do think that that will go well with some of the fall looks that I'm envisioning with this palette. I think if we're going grungy, we should just go all in and commit. I think now is the time to bring this into my everyday makeup drawer. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little intimidated by this shade, but I want to push myself outside of my comfort zone a little bit, so that will roll in. And then I do want to pick a more nude shade as well. Another kind of warm nude shade that I do really like for the fall, or really any time of year, this is the BK Beauty lipstick in the shade Kindness. So that's what that shade looks like. Definitely more of a in my comfort zone kind of color, but I think with like a slightly brownish nude lip liner, that is going to look beautiful in some fall looks. Which brings me to my lip liner category. So I do want to pick out a slightly brownish nude. I think I actually want to pull in another BK Beauty product. Whenever I'm reaching for a nude lip liner, it's almost always one of my 3 Koki ones. But because I've been so obsessed with those Koki liners for so long, I kind of have forgotten about this one. So I want to pull this one in. This is the BK Beauty lip liner in Warm Spice. I really do like this shade. On top there is the lip liner in Warm Spice, and then the lipstick in Kindness. I think because the lipstick definitely has a little bit of like a pinkiness to it, I think the Warm Spice shade will bring in some nice depth that I'm looking for some of the fall looks that I have in mind. So yeah, I think that's going to be a really nice pairing. So then this here is my eyeliner cup, and I have another eyeliner in mind that I want to pull in. This is the Perfect Point Plus eyeliner from CoverGirl in the shade Gray Khaki. I think this kind of like slightly olivey taupe shade is going to go great with that Estate palette once again. And then, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and just put this in my everyday makeup drawer too. This is the Flower Beauty Forever Wear Winged Liner in Dark and Stormy. Just a dark brown felt tip liquid liner. I use this all the time. It might as well just live in my everyday makeup drawer because I use it like probably at least half of the time I'm doing my makeup. I'm using this winged liner. Okay, so this is what my everyday makeup drawer looks like now with those new products added in. I think that this is going to make such a beautiful October little capsule collection, if you want to call it that. Of course, I still do reach into my other products and the rest of my collection, but this is kind of, these are like my main focus products for the next couple of weeks. I'm really excited about these products. I think it's a good balance between like neutral colors and more outside my comfort zone type colors, like with that really dark brown lipstick. So with all those products picked out, let's go ahead and do a full face using some of these products. I'm actually going to start with my eyeshadow today for once. I try to do this whenever I can remember, especially if I'm like not quite sure where the eye look is gonna go. Then I can decide from there like what cheek products I'm going to use and everything. So I'm just going to start out priming my lids with CoverGirl Lid Lockup Primer. So I do want to use the Estate Mystic Forest palette today. What colors do I want to use? I don't even know. I definitely want to use Fairy Dust. That is my favorite shade in this palette, that like olivey bronze. I kind of want to do something very outside of my comfort zone and use the olive green. Usually olive greens are just not my kind of color, but I want to try it. I just want to try it out today. Actually today I am going to set my eyeshadow primer with powder. I don't normally do this, but one thing about this shimmer formula in Fairy Dust and Mystic Forest, those two shades can tend to crease on my eyes. But if I set my eyeshadow primer with powder, it makes them much less crease prone. So I'm just gonna go ahead and apply my Kosas Cloud Set Powder all over the lids. And now I'm going to take some of the shade called Moss, the olive green, and I'm just going to slowly start building that up in my crease. Okay, I'm happy to report I'm actually pretty happy with the way that this shade is looking on my skin tone. I like that it stays green as I blend it out. I think my problem with a lot of olive greens is that they kind of blend into like a murky swamp sort of color, but this is a nice green. Like as it blends, it's got like a little bit of like a yellowiness to it, but it is still looking nice and green on my eyes. So okay, I'm glad I decided to give that shade a chance. So then I want to dip into this deepest brown shade called Woodland, and I am going to pack that in my outer corner close to my upper lash line. So next I'm going to go into Fairy Dust. I mean, do you see that? That is a special shadow. I am just going to pack that all over kind of the inner half of my lid now. I love that it's both foiled and sparkly. And then I do want to dip into Mystic Forest as well, this more turquoise color. I'm going to tap some of that in kind of the outer half of my lid. I feel like because this shade has a little bit more of like a teal, almost like emerald green teal sort of color to it, it'll bring out more of that in the olive as well and just make it a little bit less murky and swampy. And then just overlapping that with the more bronzy shade. The eye look is definitely not finished, but I am going to go ahead and leave it at that for now and go ahead and apply my face products, and then we'll come back and do like the final finishing touches on the eye look. So for my foundation, I'm going to use my Project Pan foundation, which is the Urban Decay Hydromaniac. And then also from my Project Pan, I'm going to use my e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. I'm kind of in the mood to do an all powder cheek look today, so I'm going to go ahead and powder my face with, of course, the Kosas Cloud Set Powder. Then bronzing with my Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Bronzer in the shade Fair. Now that we are in the fall, I'm definitely leaning towards a more subtle bronzer. In the summer, I tend to get more into like a more bronzy look, but now that the weather's cooling down, I feel like really just a nice subtle bronze just to kind of sculpt my face is really all I need. And then for blush, I'm going to go in with my Kokie blush in Bellissima. I have missed this blush, even though, I mean, it's been in my collection this whole time. I haven't really used it much in a while since I was just focusing on other things, but I'm happy to have this back in my everyday makeup drawer. Okay, so that red blush definitely does work beautifully in the fall. I was loving this all summer long, but I think it's going to transition really nicely into the fall as well. Next, I'm going to go in with my Becca highlighter in Champagne Pop. Love this thing. I haven't used this in a while either. I repressed this a while ago because I had like a big pan in it. And I actually already have more pan. Probably should try to project pan this soon. Next time I feel up for panning a highlighter. I might just toss this into my project pan, we'll see. But I will be really curious to see how much more I can expand that little pan while I have it in my everyday makeup drawer. Okay, so I did my brows using a combination of the NYX Thick-It Stick-It Brow Gel in the shade Cool Blonde and the NYX Lift and Snatch Brow Pen in Blonde. And now I am ready to put some finishing touches on this eye look. So I'm just gonna kind of blend a little bit here and see what we think it needs. So I do want to dip into this light shimmer shade here called Pixie, and that is going to be, you guessed it, our inner corner highlight. Do any of you own this palette, or is it just me? I know Estate is not like a super well-known brand. I received this in PR, but I'm curious to know if any of you have this palette or bought it. Maybe you bought it when you saw me talk about it or someone else talk about it, or I'd be curious, like, to know how many of you guys have this palette. But yeah, that light champagne shimmer is working really nicely to brighten up my inner corner, and I like to take some up here as well. It's a tip I learned from some of you guys who I think also learned that tip from Allie Glines. And I like that more than just keeping my inner corner highlight focused right here. I think bringing it upwards just ties it in really nicely with the rest of the look. And I'm gonna use my Kosas powder again to clean up my brow bone area, kind of right here. I do feel like I brought the shadow out just a little too far, so I'm kind of using the powder to blend it in. Okay, really loving this look. On the top lashes, I'm gonna use my Flower winged liner in Dark and Stormy, this nice deep brown. And then the pencil liner that I pulled into my everyday makeup drawer, this is the CoverGirl Perfect Point Plus in gray khaki. I am just going to smudge this on my lower lash line. Not my waterline, really just taking it across the lash line. I'm just going to use the little sponge smudger that it comes with on the other end, because I mean, why not? And I'm just going to use that to blend it out a little bit. Am I starting to like olive tones on myself? Never thought this day would come. This might just be the palette that gets me to change my mind about olive tones, because I'm really liking this look. I think it helps that it's not all olive colors on my eyes today. I think the Mystic Forest shade helped to kind of cool down that olive a little bit. For mascara, I'm using my favorite. This is the Milani Highly Rated Anti-Gravity Mascara. I think I'm just going to put this on my top lashes today. Sometimes I like to skip the bottom lashes if the look is very dramatic. It kind of helps keep my eyes from looking too dark. And this way, just putting it on the top lashes, it helps to give my eyes more of a lifted effect. For my lips, I am gonna go with the more nude of the two that I chose, because I think with the brown, it would just be like a little bit too intense for me, at least at this point. Maybe one day I'll be brave enough to put a bold lip with this eye look, but I wanna balance it out with a more nude lip, so I'm gonna go in with the BK Beauty lip liner in Warm Spice, blending that out with my finger, and then topping it with the lipstick in Kindness. That is so pretty. I do really like the way that peach and green go together, and because this lip is like somewhat like of a brownish peach, I think it works really well with this eye look. I am so happy with how this look turned out. This was so much fun. This might be my favorite look that I've done so far this entire fall, and it just makes me even more excited to keep using this Mystic Forest palette throughout the next couple of weeks. So I hope you guys enjoyed seeing these products in action and this look come together. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I do lots of content around just using what you already have and finding inspiration within your existing makeup collection. That's really what I'm all about. And hopefully I will talk to you very soon in my next video. Bye.